David Levin, and welcome to Pop Goes the Culture, the behind-the-scenes anecdotes of your favorite TV shows from the people who were there. Today, my conversation continues with Tony Danza. Last time, we were talking about Andy Kaufman and his obnoxious alter ego, Tony Clifton. Today, that story continues. The insanity ensues when Tony Clifton gets fired in front of the cast and crew of Taxi. Here's the real story from the great Tony Danza.
So that next day, Wednesday came, and we had a new actor, Richie Ferrangi, who was great. 150. And everybody who watches Taxi knows he said, I bet 150. But anyway, as the day went on, the day wore on, and we were rehearsing, and we got closer and closer to the run-through. And as we got close to the run-through that day, the stands started to fill up. The bleachers started to fill up for the run-through, which is very unusual. And not knowing that this deal had been made to fire Andy. And so now we started to do the run-through, and then in the middle of the run-through, there were doors in the back of the garage. Through the back of the garage bursts Andy, Tony Clifton, and he's got two giant women with him, like Amazon prostitutes with him. They were good looking, but anyway, and they were all carrying little white boxes, They've got a bunch of white boxes. And he comes in and he announces that he's rewritten the script and disrupts the whole, run-through, which was a no-no at Taxi, believe me. I mean, that was very serious. Thomas Hayden Church was here today, and Jim, he said that he talked to Jim Brooks on Spanglish that he wanted to change one word. And Brooks said, well, why don't we just have a campfire with all the scripts? So you didn't change much, and there was rules. But anyway, he announces he's rewritten the script, and that for the duration of the show, he's going to sit at the table with these two girls on his lap. Oh, and by the way, he has a present for all of us. And what the presents were in those boxes. And in the boxes were, do you remember those little stuffed animals with the remote control, the wire, had two buttons? One made it bark and one made it flip over. Okay. So you have to picture the scene. You have Andy, these two Amazon blondes, and a lot of dogs barking and flipping. And he's taking over the show. So it was interesting that day because I happened to have my Super 8 movie camera with me. This is when I was thinking that maybe I might turn into Spielberg. So I had this camera with me, so I asked the lighting guy to put the lights up and I would shoot some film of this. Well, I had no idea what was going to happen, but so I started filming. And what happened is that Ed came down and said to me, Tony, we're going to have to let you go. And expecting Tony to accept that, the spectacle had done, but Tony had other ideas. What he did was he went nuts. And he told Ed, you can't fire me, I have a contract. And he started to yell and scream, and they get into a struggle. They actually get into a physical struggle. And he kept saying things like, I have the biggest contract, I'm the biggest. And Judd was sitting on a mock-up cab across the stage. And he about had up to here with this. And to this day, some people say it was set up, Judd knew about it. I don't know. It was kind of, the patience was wearing pretty thin. So he heard bigger contract, I guess, once too often, and he got up and he said something like, no, I have the bigger contract. And they start arguing across the stage. Well, now, Weinberg's in the middle of Judd and Tony, and Tony, something about Andy that was interesting. Andy did that female wrestling thing, and the thing that Andy did that nobody realized was that because he looked like such a punk, like a physical non-specimen, that he would get beat up, and he would challenge women who would look at him and go, I'll beat him up. But Andy was a little bit of an athlete in his own way. And in fact, one of the things he did to women was he let them think they were going to win. And when they really they really went all out, put out's not the word, but when they really went all out, that's when he would beat them and sort of over-humiliate them. And then he'd step on them and say, go back to the kitchen and get in your, he'd be. But anyway, so I'm saying he's not unfit. He's not, he is physical in some ways. So he and Jed are hard, and Weinberg is trying to break it up. Well, a wrestling match starts. And Ed is standing there, and it's like a cartoon where two guys start wrestling, and then one guy reaches down and he gets sucked right into it. So now the three of them are rolling around on the floor, and I'm filming away. And it's berserk. And the dogs are barking and flipping, and the girls are standing there, and the people are in the stands, and everybody's watching this. This is the craziest spectacle you've ever seen. All of a sudden, security comes, and they wrestle the guys apart, and they drag Andy off the stage. And as he's being dragged out, he says, don't come to Vegas. Don't come to Vegas. I get you there. You'll be mine, and you'll never work again. And he's just ranting and raving, and he's in orange brocade. I mean, you got to see the spectacle. Then they drag him off. Okay. So we did the show, and that was the end of it. And that basically was the end of it.
That's our show for today, but that's not quite the end of the Andy Kaufman adventure. Tomorrow, Tony relates what happened when Andy returned to Taxi the week after Tony Clifton's Rampage. Tony also talks about how the cast of Taxi remained close after that show was canceled, and how Tony brought Mary Lou Henner on as a guest star on his later sitcom, Who's the Boss? All that and more on the next Pop Goes the Culture. Till then, subscribe and be a part of the Pop Goes the Culture family, helping us determine who our next guests will be, and getting sneak previews of upcoming episodes by contributing to our Patreon campaign. I'm David Levin. Thanks for watching. Don't miss Ask Them Yourself, a live version of Pop Goes the Culture where you can be part of the conversation via Skype or FaceTime.